This time I will call the April the 8th meeting of the Murray City Council to order. Welcome to our guests. Welcome to our council members who the first time in a long time, everyone's been able to come in person. And if you forgot who some of you are, just introduce yourselves after the meeting. Ask you to join us in a moment of reflection and then join us in the pledge led by Alice Rouse.
You join with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you. First item on the First item on the agenda is to consider the minutes of the March 25th council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve those minutes. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. I don't have anything under the mayor's report, except I just did, before the meeting, receive an update from the governor's office about the COVID vaccine. As of today, 44% of all Kentucky adults have received the vaccine, but they are seeing a gradual decline in the number of people signing up. Reminding everyone that everyone over 16 is eligible and invited to get your vaccination. Our numbers here in Callaway County have been quite low for a few weeks now. Sometimes 0, 1, 2, I believe 4 yesterday, 3 today. And we've got to keep up our social distancing and mask wearing and hand washing, because in some areas they're starting to have a spike. And we certainly don't want that to happen here, because we're trying really hard to work our way back to some type of normalcy. So I encourage everyone to, until we can get the vast majority of our folks vaccinated, let's continue taking the precautions that have got us to where we are now.
Mayor, could you review with us just a little bit about what sort of policy do we have on public areas now as far as restaurants and everything here in Murray and Kentucky, I guess? We're under their laws, aren't they, state of Kentucky? We don't have any special laws for us particularly.
No,
What is the?
just whatever
I can't keep up with what's.
the governor's, guidelines are the ones that are still in effect as to what percent and so forth. So,
We know what we are now.
I thought restaurants were 50%.
50%.
Is that correct? I believe that's right. That's the main one that I'm aware of. That's right, Kim. Okay. But our numbers have really decreased locally, so, and I see a lot of folks wearing masks everywhere I go, and I'm very, very impressed with that. I just hope we can keep it up.
Is there any pattern to where these cases keep coming up as far as the 2 and the 3? Are they from a particular area of the county, or are they in Murray State? Or is there any tracing going on to find out where
I don't know about that. I don't know.
I don't think they're gonna tell you that because that'd be a violation. That'd be a HIPAA violation, so they're not gonna tell you where it's at.
Well, I know it being a particular case that it was,
Yeah.
I don't know if it did any tracing or not.
Well, they're still not gonna tell you that either.
They may not know.
Well, the high school students and families were on spring break this week, so I suppose we might see next week whether the numbers are higher, you know, if they bring it back. Hopefully that won't happen, but that's possible, so they say. But anyway, I just received that a few minutes ago. 44% of all Kentucky adults have been vaccinated. Tonight, I've invited Aaron Carrico to come and provide us an update on the Convention and Visitors Bureau. This is one area that has really been impacted by COVID. And so, Ms. Carrico, welcome. And we're ready for your report.
Are we on? Okay. Hi, it's been a minute since I've been up here in front of all you all. Actually, I think a couple of years. So I provided a little packet of information for you. I'm not going to go over every single detail, but there's a couple of things that I want to point out. The past, 16 months have probably been the most difficult across the tourism industry that I've been through in my career. For the longest time, we all said that 08 and 09 were the hardest for the tourism industry, and this just beats all, and it's ever changing. I will say it's becoming much more stable, but what I really would like you to look at is on the front page of the statistical information, this chart on the top right here. This is our occupancy rate. This is how we measure our success, how we are doing. I get a weekly report from what is called Smith Travel Research. That tells me from the previous week what our hotel occupancy rate was, how full our hotel rooms were. We have 457 in the city, in case you wanted to know. On top of that, it also talks about an average daily rate. So even though, let's say, last February I was sitting at half of our hotels were full for the entire month, that average daily rate may have been $109. Right now, it's not $109. Our average daily rate is significantly lower. So even though we're arching back up to the 45-50% range, the amount of funding is not equaling out. Does that make sense? So you can see in the worst of the pandemic, April, May was very scary. I've never seen numbers like that before. We've slowly crawled our way back. Last summer in July, in August in particular, we had an onslaught of visitors. They were not from events in town because there were none. They were not from the university because they had no events either. They were true visitors that would come through our office, staying in the hotels, just finding places to explore that were within a 3 or 4 hour distance from their home, which was very interesting to see. So one of the things I put in the packet, because we started seeing this spike that we couldn't explain, we had to give them something to do that was safe in downtown. And so we created the downtown walking tour. If you are interested in it, talks about the historic places we're in. It gave our visitors another reason. So we also do the Callaway County Quilt Trail. So then we had two activities for people to do safely last summer. Turned out to be very successful, surprisingly, and we kind of came up with that on the fly. Thanks to Dina's history knowledge, it was very useful. Some other things that is on the statistical information page. Our main job is to promote Murray and sell our brand and sell our story. That became very hard in the past year because you didn't want people to travel. You didn't want them here. So we had to get very creative. One of our goals was to stay engaged on the social platforms with the people that already follow us. We are very lucky. We have a very high number of followers for our size community, And you can see the 4 different campaigns that we worked on to try to get us through the push of what was happening. Out of that, we ended up with a 7% increase of followers, that people were listening and wanting to see what we were doing, which, to be honest, it kind of blew my mind that that was even happening. So I'll give you a little information on that. On the back, it's a little heavy and cumbersome. That's why I wanted to give it to you to take home. Right before COVID hit, we put a substantial amount of money into research. Research is very expensive. We can't afford to do it often, but it's really important to know where our visitors are coming from, how long they're staying, anything that we can find out about them to target our message better. So I never got to share this information with you all. The big takeaway out of this entire sheet on the back is that we have visitors that come to this town that are here just for Murray, the city, and then we have a different set that are here just for Murray State University. That's not necessarily the surprising part. The surprising part is that more people come to visit the city of Murray than they do MSU. However, the MSU visitors stay longer. So that's why we see such a spike in numbers regarding our hotels. But our overnight visitors are 1 to 5, I think, 1.5 for in the city only, and we have a lot of day travelers into the city. So I found that very interesting. Also, that came out of that research, there are 2 places that we in our office have never marketed to before, and that was Evansville and Memphis. Nashville's a given, Louisville's a given, but we were shocked to find out how many people came out of the Evansville and Memphis area. So we definitely, even through COVID, shifted our focus as to where we were marketing, and I think that's where our social media increase came from. Is we were marketing to areas that we had not before, and they responded very well to it. So, let's see, some of the other things we're working on. We rewrote and redid an entire website during COVID. We had plenty of time, so that's what we worked on while we were at home. We also started a podcast. We've taken a hiatus since fall, because it just didn't kind of feel appropriate. But we're gonna start that back up in the beginning of the summer. We have a weekly podcast that we produce in my office, edit it, put it on iTunes and Spotify. We always take guests if you're interested in coming to talk to us. We talk about events upcoming in Murray, what's going on in town. During the peak of COVID, specifically in March and April, we turned it into what restaurants are open, how can you get there, where can you get PPE, how can you get a PPP loan. So we shifted focus for a bit and had a really great response of people just trying to figure out any information they could find. So meet us on Main. Again, you can find us on Spotify or iTunes, and it's free to listen. We're gonna start that back up in the summer, talking about all the events that we have. And I will say, aside from what my office and Main Street's office is doing, there are events happening all over town, all summer long. It's really great to see. I missed it terribly. And it's just beautiful. So, for example, the 2 previous weekends, our occupancy rate set at 85%. So that was a shocking number to me. That's usually like homecoming weekend type numbers. So the problem is that we are not to a point yet where we have consistency. During the week, we may be sitting at 30%, and we may blow it out of the water on the weekend. So we're needing to get back to that sweet spot where our numbers are more consistent. I think that will slowly level off. Just the chart alone I show you of the past year, it's starting to creep back up. It's gonna be really slow. Trends on a national and state level tell us that tourism's going to come back in 2024. I think we'll see it sooner than that. I think we'll see a bounce back probably in 2023. It'll come to us quicker because we're a university town. Makes a big difference. Is there any, wayfinding. So, sure.
What was the deal there on, you said you would have a podcast on Spotify now?
Yes. No, we've had it going for a year. We took a 6-month hiatus because there just was not enough substantial events. There weren't enough events going on in town to justify.
All those are archived.
They are archived, yes.
Spotify
That's correct, and you can do the same on iTunes. Yes, and you can do it on iTunes as well. Meet us on Main. You can find us.
On this first handout you got us, Aaron, where it shows the number of people who are staying here for the city as opposed to Murray State. Do you have any research on what it was that we did in Murray?
No, so let me explain a little about the research. We did what was called geofencing. Have you heard of that before? So we worked with Uber Media, which is the same people that own like Uber, the car app. Okay, so they have a whole research side. And we worked with Uber Media and we literally created a digital geofence around the city of Murray. Then we created a geofence around Murray State University. So we were very specific. They trace you by your phone. 87% of people in the United States carry mobile phones. And Uber Media owns like 15% of the share of apps they are tied to. Weather Channel, lots of apps, lots of media apps, all are tied to Uber Media. That's how they trace you. So they were able to set parameters to set to your phone and the GPS and the apps. You know, when it says, can this app use your location? That's how they find you. So then they take the information that they gather, they weed out someone that's consistently coming in and out at the same time every day, a commuter. So they just start drawing out specifics to get the information we're looking at. So I can tell you if they're male or female, where they're coming from and how long they're staying, but that's as far as geofencing can kind of track them for.
But is there any other device you could use, or internet you could use to find out why these people actually aren't here? Because it would seem that would be helpful in order to plan in advance.
Sure.
I'm assuming the last 2 weekend spikes in occupancy relate to some of the ball tournaments that were held at the city park.
Actually, the majority of what's happening is related to the soccer tournament 2 weekends ago and then OVC sports. There are smatterings of hotel rooms that are taken by the park tournaments, but that is not what's selling them out.
Okay, I thought the soccer tournament was a park.
It was in the park, it was run by the soccer association.
Which usually draws people from a much wider area.
It does.
Than what baseball tournaments do. Most of your baseball tournaments, a lot of your travel teams are local, so they don't need to stay. A lot of your travel soccer teams are not local. You've got to go a long way to play travel soccer, so thus they're gonna be coming in and thus they're gonna be staying in our rooms.
So it would be a good thing if we would work with the soccer association to have more of those, right?
We do. Yeah, we work with them. I'm in constant contact with Tim Stark. We were in constant communication about what was happening. And they had so many teams, they had to send them to Mike Miller Park, which is a great problem to have.
So are there plans for another?
They do one every fall,
want
and
to-
this March one was a new attempt since they couldn't execute the one they execute every fall.
Which their fall tournament
Yes.
in history their fall tournament has been absolutely huge. It's been very, very large. So thus, if you can attract both the spring tournament, which turns out to be a large one, and a fall one, you know, the fall one is the biggest one that they do. So
From my understanding, it went very well, and they anticipate trying to keep both. That's their goal.
So it would be interesting to know.
Yes.
We had that spike in July and August.
There are research firms out there. It comes down to budget and money.
So what did 2019 look like then? Can you compare this with the year before? I mean, what's a normal occupancy rate for summer?
Sure. Our average occupancy rate for a year runs in the 60s. Okay? So it actually, our major spikes are in the fall, and the research talks about this. Our major spikes are April through June, and then September through November. Those are our major spikes.
Okay, you mentioned budget. I know the last time you reported to the council, you did include a budget. Was there some reason you didn't get one tonight?
No, I wasn't asked to bring it. I didn't know it was a budget. Like, I mean, I can email it to you.
I thought it was great.
Sure. Yeah.
but you have to remember, we don't control her budget. The money is a pass-through through the city. It's controlled by their board. So, you know, we don't have anything to do with it. It's just a
It's
pass-through.
shockingly small.
I do think it's interesting to look at how the money, ebbs and flows, where it's spent, where it comes from.
it's been ebbing and flowing a lot lately in the past year. Yeah, but yes, that's no problem. I can email it to you tomorrow. I don't mind. Sure.
Aaron, do you have any events coming up this year?
Specifically out of our office or just anything that I know about in town?
Pardon me?
Specifically from my office or just what I know is coming to town?
No, specifically from your office.
So we are gonna push forward and we're gonna do the citywide yard sale. We stopped it for over a year, about a year and a half. We're starting that back again in May. Freedom Fest is gonna happen. Well, let me rephrase that. Our two portions of Freedom Fest are scheduled and moving forward. I have not yet heard and been confirmed by the other organizations that put on events that day. For instance, there's a group that reads the Constitution on the court square. The Boy Scouts have a ham breakfast. Those pieces haven't fallen into place yet on confirmation. Our office is in control of the parade and fireworks. Those two will be happening. It'll be a little different this year because the 4th is on a Sunday. We're gonna keep the fireworks on Sunday night. All the other events and the parade will be on Saturday morning. So.
Apologize for dominating the question session, but I do have another question.
Sure.
As I understand it, this is the state tourism visitor's guide, is that correct?
That's correct.
And these are located at rest stops,
Correct.
hotels.
Correct.
State, and it represents the entire state.
That's correct.
So I had a little time this afternoon and went through it. And the only mention of Murray that I'm finding is that we have a quilt trail.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we're getting visits from Murray State, or Murray State's drawing people, if there is a Freedom Fest coming up, how could those things also be included in this?
Mhm.
I think if we do good things, we need to let other people know we do good things.
Sure. I don't disagree with you. As far as the state visitor guide goes, you have to understand that the KDT office, Kentucky Department of Travel and Tourism, controls that piece of material. I can submit all day long. I submitted the photos you saw, the information. They have the choice on editorial as to what they choose. I'm not the only town in Kentucky, so they have to spread the love as best they can. That being said, the state does a really great job. Did you happen to visit the corresponding website?
No, I'm old
Okay,
school.
that's all right. Sure.
Pick up in hotels.
The corresponding website, we have control of what we can put on. Kayla and I are very diligent about every one of our restaurants is on there. CFSB Center, the Cherie, anything we can name because we control and we are allowed to put on as many as we want on that website. That piece is very limited. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating.
Well, it seems to be that I've seen that there are a number of other roughly equivalent towns already that have more coverage. So that was basically.
Yes. Oh, I can share your frustration. I've shared that frustration for many years. Also, though, regarding to the quilt trail, that's what a lot of our visitors that aren't associated with Murray State come for. We have people from Texas, Pennsylvania, Arkansas, Iowa come in on the regular. That was a huge portion of our walk-in visitors last year because you could safely do that from your car. So we are actually quite popular for our quilt trail. We're in a couple of printed quilt trail books for what we've established. So that is a really large highlight for us. But yes, I do understand your frustration. I've had it for many years.
Thank you. Could you bring us up to date on the wayfinding
Sure,
project?
I can. I feel like I'm never going to stop talking about it at this point. I feel like we're finally in a really good place. I think the last time I was talking to you all about this, we had just been awarded the grant from the state, and that was almost a year and a half ago. We had some issues where we were stalled out with the state for various reasons, not important. We went out for bid once. It was a bit of a frustrating process. It was in the middle of COVID. We only had one bid come back, and it was 3 times what our anticipated budget and grant amount was. Obviously, we decided to reject that. And the state at that particular moment decided that they wanted us to make changes to the design schematics, even though it had already been approved. Long story short, it took several months, several phone calls. I will say the kicker that really moved it down the road was the mayor and Workman. What's his first name? Mark, thank you. Mark Workman actually got the project running again. Mark Workman really did kind of save us. And he called the mayor up one day just to see if there was anything he needed, and the mayor let him have it. And so here we are in this current moment of we have fixed the requests of the state. Marissa has put together a new bid. It will go out at the end of April, assuming the state approves everything. Once the state approves and the bid is, there's a bid accepted, I've been told it will be 5 to 6 months before we see a sign in the ground. So that's my current update.
Are these the signs that y'all submitted?
Yes, yes. The changes that they had us make had to do with font. Yeah, I know. Had to do with fonts and the shapes of a parking sign. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I do believe this wayfinding sign is a very worthwhile project. I do believe this is one that we need to get in, if we need to get more involved in, we do. And I thank you, Mayor, for getting involved in it, because I think this will be a beautiful addition to our city with the signs. And I think if we can get more signs, we need to get more signs. Obviously, we're not going to be able to because of the grant, but if we as a city can somehow or another find a way to get more signs, I believe we need to, because these are very pertinent. I think they make a name for us. People see them when they come in. They're directional signs, and I believe they are very important. And this is a project that's been going on for way too long. And this is a project that needs to be done, and hopefully we'll get it done. But I do think we can, get this project moving and get going. It's going to look very nice for the city.
I commend you all also for your persistence.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. My mother would call it stubborn, but okay. That's fine.
Are there any other questions or comments for Ms. Carrico? If not, thank you very much for sharing with us.
Thank you.
The Cemetery Committee met before the meeting tonight. Ms. Chair, do you have a report?
Yes, sir. My cemetery committee is made up of myself, Alice Rouse is the vice chair, Johnny Bohannon, John Mark Roberts, Pat Sieber, and Burton Young. And this, if I may just back up a little bit. I've been on the cemetery committee for several years, and the mayor appointed me cemetery chair. I guess it's been 2 years ago now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And, but before that, I had noticed when I would go to the cemetery, because we have plots there and we have family members buried there, I noticed on one of the roads, one of the main roads, there was this big, huge, burned out stump. Wasn't quite as wide as that podium right there, but it was big, wasn't it, Alice? Yes. It was great big around. And I noticed a lot of old, broken, moss-covered, vine-covered, headstones just kind of propped up against it. Several of them were stacked maybe 2 and 3 deep, and it just kind of bothered me to see them like that. I thought it was kind of a disrespectful way to display those headstones, and that they represented real people who lived here 100 years ago, 150 years ago. And I just never did anything about it until I became the chair, and I got together with members of my committee. And we went out there one day, Alice and I did, and I think Burton, you might have been with us too, and looked at that stump, and we started looking through those old broken down
headstones, and I found one that had a really clear etching on it, and it was, the little girl's name was Sarah Jane Utterback, and she was 5 years old when she died. And she died back in the 1800s, and that just kind of, I don't know, it just really touched me very deeply. At the time, I had a 5-year-old granddaughter as well, and it really just made it so much more personal. And to see that a lot of those graves were of infants that died before they were a year old. Some of them might have only lived a month, and some of them might have been 50 years old, but they're historical. And as I said, they represent people families that lived here, and I just felt like we've got to do something better than this. And I found out that most of those headstones would get broken over or knocked over, and eventually their actual burial place was lost. And so the people in the workers in the cemetery would prop them up against that burned out stump, just so they would all be in one place. So that's how this started. Alice and I went out there one day with some milk jugs of water and some Dawn liquid and some soft scrub brushes, and tried to clean them up. Did a little bit good job, but not anything like it could have been done if a professional had done it. And you have pictures of this on your table. Do all of you have the pictures? Okay, this one is just a close-up of one of the graves that one of the gravestones that doesn't have a grave to go to. And here's another one. And then while we were over there, while Alice and I were there, Tom Emery, our city sexton, came over to see what we were doing. And when we explained to him what we were doing, he said that because the mowing season was coming to an end, that he would be able to help us, which he did. He actually took those tombstones that were all around that stump, and he took them back to the, I don't know where you took them, Tom, back to the shop, okay, and he cleaned them off so gingerly and so gently, and did not harm any of them. And we went over there and looked at them. He did an excellent job. And then we talked about how to display them. And this one here is where he decided to put all of them in a certain area there of the cemetery. And you can drive by and see this. He outlined it with some gray stone and put some gravel in it, and then he laid the markers face up so you can read them. And so that's how this all started. And then I talked with Ron, where's Ron? Okay, about the mausoleum with Jesus praying in the garden. We talked about that, and you can talk about that in just a moment if you would. But in our meeting that we just had, in our committee meeting, we talked about some other things that we felt might possibly need some attention. One of them is the growth of the black stuff, that mold that grows on the concrete on some of these mausoleums that the city owns. Another thing was some of the street signs have been vandalized. The names of the presidents whose those streets are named after have been taken off, and no one knows where they are either. What else did we talk about? The gate being locked, and we did. Ron Albritton said that there was less vandalism with the gates being open all the time. Is that correct?
Jim.
Oh, that was you, Jim. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so I guess we'll just keep going with that. We don't want any vandalism there, and there wasn't very much vandalism anyway, correct? Not a lot, okay. We talked about what we can do for the street signs. We have a street department that possibly in the future, someday, you're going to design a new sign to put up on all of the streets. And
Did you have any action items you want to bring before us?
yes, thank you. We decided to, after Ron Albritton presented his part to us, we decided to accept the generous offer of one of our firefighters, Mr. Franklin, who said that he would paint it just for the cost. I mean, we provide the cost of the materials, and that he would paint it, and he is a marvelous, can you put those pictures up and show them? Okay. Okay. Well, would you like to start talking about it?
It's very similar to what's already up there. It's Jesus in the garden. It'll look a lot much fresher. Most everybody was here. I wish I had. That's right. But it's very similar to what's already up there. And you have a picture of what's already up there too.
Right. It should be on your tables there.
It'll just be a lot clearer, but Justin Franklin will do it, any cost of the materials.
I do appreciate Justin doing this for us, and I think it's a good thing that we're giving somebody that knows Murray and wants to give back to Murray and donate his time, and Everett's kudos goes to Justin. He's a good man.
And he also said that he would like for the, instead of signing his signature on the bottom of it, he wanted it to be in memory of the firefighters, Ron,
Yes.
the Murray firefighters. So we
So do
voted.
you make a motion that you accept Mr. Franklin's offer?
Okay, I make that motion that we,
Photo.
okay.
I'll second it.
Motion made and second to accept the offer of firefighter Franklin to restore the mural to where it's very similar to its original form. Is that correct?
Correct.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your interest in the cemetery. Madam Clerk, we want to consider a resolution. Could you read that for us?
Resolution number 2021-1807. I'm sorry, 2021-02. A resolution authorizing the City of Murray to apply for the Community Development Block CV Grant 2021 for utility assistance.
I'd move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Mr. Hodron, you want to say a few words about what we're approving?
Yes, sir. For anybody that doesn't know, this is part of the CARES Act money that was released. It's a community development block grant, much like the fire station. The CV stands for coronavirus, so we're applying for about $200,000. We expect to get 140 or in that area. That money will be transferred to West Kentucky Allied Services, who will then pay utility payments that are in arrears for City of Murray residents.
There's a motion and a second to approve this resolution. Is there any other discussion? Not all in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Likewise, the resolution is approved. Madam Clerk will now consider ordinance 2021-1807. If you'll please read that.
21-1807, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2020-1796, an ordinance which adopted the FY21 City of Murray, Kentucky annual budget by restating certain revenues and expenditures for the City of Murray operations budget.
So move.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the ordinance. Our finance officer, Ms. White, went through this amendment with the finance committee. We had our first reading last meeting. This is the second reading. You have a motion and a second. Ms. White is here if you have any questions before we vote. Are there any questions? If not, we'll have a roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Jeremy Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Johnny Bohannon,
Yes.
Mr. Wesley Boland. Yes. Ms. Linda Cherry,
Yes.
Ms. Rose Elder,
Yes.
Mr. Danny Husband,
Yes.
Mr. Monty McChristian, Mr. John Mark Roberts, Miss Alice Roos,
Yes.
Miss Pat Sieber,
Yes.
Dr. Burton Young. Thank you.
Motion passes 11-0. Ordinance is approved. Next item on the agenda is adjournment.
Mr. Mayor, being no business before the council, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and second to adjourn the meeting.